The British Museum in London, United Kingdom. The British Museum, located in the Bloomsbury area of London, in the United Kingdom, is a public institution dedicated to human history, art, and culture. Its permanent collection numbers some 8 million works, and is among the largest and most comprehensive in existence, having been widely sourced during the era of the British Empire, and documenting the story of human culture from its beginnings to the present. It is the first national public museum in the world. The British Museum was established in 1753, largely based on the collections of the Irish physician and scientist Sir Hans Sloane. It first opened to the public on January 15, 1759, in Montagu House, on the site of the current building. Its expansion over the following 2.5 centuries was largely a result of expanding British colonisation and has resulted in the creation of several branch institutions, the first being the British Museum, Natural History, now the Natural History Museum in 1881. In 1973, the British Library Act 1972 detached the Library Department from the British Museum, but it continued to host the now separated British Library in the same reading room and building as the museum until 1997. The museum is a non-departmental public body sponsored by the Department for Digital, Culture, Media, and Sport, and as with all other national museums in the United Kingdom, it charges no admission fee, except for loan exhibitions. Its ownership of some of its most famous objects originating in other countries is disputed and remains the subject of international controversy, most notably in the case of the Parthenon marbles. Today the museum no longer houses collections of natural history, and the books and manuscripts it once held now form part of the independent British Library. The museum nevertheless preserves its universality in its collections of artifacts representing the cultures of the world, ancient and modern. The original 1753 collection has grown to over 13 million objects at the British Museum, 70 million at the Natural History Museum and 150 million at the British Library. The Round Reading Room, which was designed by the architect Sidney Smirke, opened in 1857. For almost 150 years researchers came here to consult the museum's vast library. The reading room closed in 1997 when the National Library, the British Library, moved to a new building at St. Pancras. Today it has been transformed into the Walter and Leonore Onnenberg Centre. With the book stacks in the central courtyard of the museum empty, the demolition for Lord Foster's glass-roofed Great Court could begin. The Great Court, opened in 2000, while undoubtedly improving circulation around the museum, was criticized for having a lack of exhibition space at a time when the museum was in serious financial difficulties and many galleries were closed to the public. At the same time, the African collections that had been temporarily housed in 6 Burlington Gardens were given a new gallery in the North Wing funded by the Sainsbury family with the donation valued at £25 million. As part of its very large website, the museum has the largest online database of objects in the collection of any museum in the world, with 2 million individual object entries, 650,000 of them illustrated, online at the start of 2012. There is also a highlights database with longer entries on over 4,000 objects, and several specialized online research catalogs and online journals. In 2013 the museum's website received 19.5 million visits, an increase of 47% from the previous year. In 2013 the museum received a record 6.7 million visitors, an increase of 20% from the previous year. Popular exhibitions including Life and Death in Pompeii and Herculaneum and Ice Age art are credited with helping fuel the increase in visitors. Plans were announced in September 2014 to recreate the entire building along with all exhibits in the video game Minecraft in conjunction with members of the public. It is a point of controversy whether museums should be allowed to possess artifacts taken from other countries, and the British Museum is a notable target for criticism. The Elgin Marbles, Benin bronzes, Ethiopian tablets and the Rosetta Stone are among the most disputed objects in its collections, and organizations have been formed demanding the return of these artifacts to their native countries of Greece, Nigeria, and Egypt respectively. Parthenon marbles claimed by Greece were also claimed by UNESCO among others for restitution. From 1801 to 1812, Elgin's agents took about half of the surviving sculptures of the Parthenon, as well as sculptures from the Propylaea and Erechthum. In recent years, controversies pertaining to reparation of artifacts taken from the Old Summer Palace in Beijing during the Anglo-French invasion of China in 1860 have also begun to surface. The ransacking and destruction of the Chinese palaces has led to unhealed historical wounds in Chinese culture. Victor Hugo condemned the French and British for their plundering. The British Museum and the Victoria and Albert Museum, among others, have been asked since 2009 to open their archives for investigation by a team of Chinese investigators as a part of an international mission to document lost national treasures. However, there have been fears that the United Kingdom may be asked to return these treasures. As of 2010, Neil MacGregor, the director of the British Museum, said he hoped that both British and Chinese investigators would work together on the controversial collection, which continues to result in resentment in China. The British Museum has refused to return these artifacts, stating that the restitutionist premise, that whatever was made in a country must return to an original geographical site, would empty both the British Museum and the other great museums of the world. The museum has also argued that the British Museum Act of 1963 legally prevents any object from leaving its collection once it has entered it. Nevertheless, it has returned items such as the Tasmanian ashes after a 20-year-long battle with Australia. The British Museum continues to assert that it is an appropriate custodian and has an inalienable right to its disputed artefacts under British law. In 2016, the British Museum moved its bag searches to marquees in the front courtyard and beside the rear entrance. This has been criticised by heritage groups as out of character with the historic building. The British Museum clarified that the change was purely logistical to save space in the main museum entrance and did not reflect any escalation in threat. Like us and join us at Extreme Collections for more fun and knowledge.